We are doing series of video lectures on digital communication. Today we're going to start with module number 3, digital modulation techniques. Pretty much like AM, FM and PM in analog communication, we have ASK, FSK and PSK in digital communication. These are the basic modulation techniques of digital communication. We're going to study each of them in detail. Let us start with ASK, amplitude shift keying. Definitely in this, amplitude of the carrier signal is going to vary according to the message signal. To make you understand better, let me pull this figure. Okay. As you can see here, part B of the figure indicates message signal. Since it is digital communication, information is in terms of bits, that is ones and zeros, binary bits. To quantify this information, we can use any line code. Here we are using NRZ line code for ASK. So bit 1 is represented by 1 volt and bit 0 is represented by 0 volt. Or you can say bit 1 is logic high and bit 0 is logic low. So you can see here everywhere wherever you have bit 1, it is represented by positive 1 volt and bit 0 is represented by 0 volt. So you have only one polarity, that is positive polarity. That's why it is called NRZ line code. So this part B of the complete figure is the message signal. On the top, if you see here, you have a very high frequency sinusoid and this is going to act like a carrier signal. When you combine these both, part A and part B, you'll end up getting this, the signal that is part C of the figure. This is basically ASK. Now if you notice here, whenever you have information as bit 1, you get presence of the carrier signal, and whenever you have bit 0, you get absence of the carrier signal. And so this is the essence of overall ASK. Pictorially based on the information. If information is bit 1, carrier signal is there. If information is bit 0, carrier signal is not there. Alright, we can have definition as well. So I'm quickly going to read the definition. So it says that it is a modulation technique in which the amplitude of the carrier signal, so this is the carrier signal part A, will change according to the message signal part B. Okay, the resultant is part C. Bit 1 is going to represent as the presence of carrier signal and bit 0 is absence of carrier signal, and that is the reason in some of the literature you will find ASK as on-off signaling or on-off keying. Okay, having the pictorial representation, let us see how do we represent this waveform in the form of equations. So part A, that is a carrier signal. You know how to represent a carrier signal. You have already studied in analog communication. That is AC cos 2 pi FCT, right? AC being the amplitude of carrier signal. If the amplitude is 1 volt, then cos 2 pi FCT. So no need to represent for a carrier signal. Let us see how to represent the NRZ unipolar waveform which represents the message here. For that, I'm going to pull the blackboard. Okay, so let us assume that this is the way I want to represent the NRZ unipolar here. Okay, and this basically represents my signal. Okay, so for this I'm going to pull the blackboard. Okay, let us say this is the way I'm going to represent my message signal in time domain, and that is nothing but NRZ unipolar. So this is the waveform of NRZ unipolar. Okay, 1 0 1 0 1, like this. This is the information, suppose. Okay, and the signal is represented by m of t. You can notice there are two voltage levels, 1 volt and 0 volt. If the information is bit 1, then 1 volt. If the information is bit 0, then you have to represent as 0 volt. So I can say that I have my message signal m of t, which is having amplitude ak. Ak is a variable which can be either 1 volt or 0 volt. Also, if you notice, this NRZ uniform, which is in white color, okay, it is made up of many rectangular pulses. So if I can show you one of the rectangular pulse, so this is the basic rectangular pulse. Let me name it as PT, P of t. Okay, so if I include that in the equation as well, so I'll say AK is the amplitude of the pulse PT. It can be either 1 volt or 0 volt. Okay, but there are many pulses, so I have to include that as well. To do that, I need to know the bit duration. Let us say the bit duration or the pulse duration of each of this signal is TB. Okay, so I can write it as like this. Okay, minus K times of TB, and I can put the summations like many of these pulses are added together to give you the final waveform. So this is our message signal. K goes from minus infinity to infinity, or K being the integer. Okay, so this is the way you write your message signal. I hope you understood how to write any line code in terms of equation. So our information is in terms of bits. Bits are represented in terms of NRZ unipolar, and we have wrote the equation. Hope you have understood it. Anyways, let us go back to the presentation. So let us now call our this is the message signal. Just now we have discussed AK. AK is the amplitude, which can be either 1 volt or 0 volt. TB is the bit duration. Okay, and PT is the basic rectangular pulse. Okay, now the multiplication of this with this is actually going to give you the final ASK waveform. Okay, so let us multiply and get the final waveform. Okay, so you can see we have multiplied the message signal with the carrier signal to finally get the ASK waveform. So I hope you have an idea of how to pictorially represent an ASK and how to do the equation part of it. All right. Now, having this, we can further go into detailed discussion of ASK. Having this, we can further go in the detailed discussion of ASK. See, overall ASK is a big topic, and we have tried dividing it into 5 simpler topics. Okay. All right. So the topics that we're going to study under this is, the first one is signal space representation of ASK. In this, we're going to represent ASK signal basically as a linear combination of basis function. So first we need to figure out how many basis functions are required, and then when we have idea of how many basis functions are required, we will represent the signal as linear combination of basis function. Once we have that, we can design the transmitter or the generator of ASK. Followed by that, we'll have receiver. Now the bit that we receive, the information that we receive might not be the actual information that we have transmitted. So there are chances of error. So we need to figure out what is the probability of error in ASK. So that's going to be the 4th point of discussion. And finally, what is the frequency domain spectrums of ASK looks like. So we need to figure out the power spectral density of ASK as well. So these are the topics that need to be discussed. Before we really get into the discussion of our first topic, a little bit of insight that I want to give you. All right, so this is very small information, but it will be required in the further discussion. Okay, so as you have seen that ASK is actually the presence and absence of carrier signal. So let us say any carrier signal is given to you. Say ST is a carrier signal, AC cos 2 pi FCT. Okay. Now what is the power in this signal? Since signal is a periodic signal, you can easily find out the power. Power is given by A square by 2. Right? Or I can say AC square. Let us say this is AC square. AC square by 2. Alright. Now we know that power is equal to energy per unit time. But since we are discussing digital communication, power of a bit we'll consider and time duration of a bit we'll consider. So power Energy of the bit will be given by EB, and the time duration is given by TB. Clearly, you can find out the relation between the amplitude as well as energy and time duration. So you can write here AC is equal to root of twice of EB by TB. I hope you have understood how to get this. Just send this to the other side and do the square root. You'll get the value. Now what you can do is you can replace this AC here with this value. Okay, so you can write like this. Okay, S of t is equal to root of twice of EB by TB times of cos. Yeah, you could completely complete it, or I can say since A is equal to root of twice EB by TB, so S of t can be written as twice of EB by TB cos 2 pi FCT. So what you have done, in place of amplitude here, this is the amplitude, sorry, AC, you have just wrote twice of EB by TB. So if there is a presence of cosine signal, you're going to write like this. If there is absence of cosine signal, then that time st will become 0. Okay, I hope you have an understanding now why we are bothered about carrier signal and why we are talking about signal in terms of energy and time, so that we can have power spectral density easily. All right, so with this knowledge, let us move with our first topic, signal space representation of ASK. So this is the ASK waveform. Okay, right, presence of carrier signal and absence of carrier signal. Okay, I told you the presence of carrier signal means how do we write, and absence of carrier signal means it is 0 anyway. All right, so let me call this. So bit 1 is represented, bit 1 is nothing but the presence of carrier signal. Carrier signal is A cos 2 pi FCT, but A is twice of EB by TB, EB being the energy of the bit and TB being the bit duration. What about 0? 0 will be represented by 0 itself. Okay, now if you see signal 1 and 2, if you notice signal 1 and 2, you can say S2T is 0 times of S1T because the value of S2T is 0. So somehow signal 2 is dependent on signal 1, or you can say signal 2 can be represented in terms of signal 1. So you can clearly say that signal 2 is linearly dependent on signal 1. Okay, you can make this statement. So you don't need two basis function. One basis function will be enough to represent both the signal in signal space. Okay, because there is a linear dependency. All right, so since S2T is dependent on S1T, one basis function is enough to represent both the signal in signal space. Okay, in order to represent a signal as a linear combination of basis function, we have an equation called synthesizer equation. Okay, this equation is synthesizer equation. Okay, if you can see here, this equation I am talking about. Here phi j is called basis function. So any given signal, okay, any given signal S1T or S2T, whatever, can be represented as a linear combination. Linear combination means there's a summation that represents linear combination. Linear combination of basis function. When I say linear combination, you can understand I'm talking about equation which follows superposition and homogeneity. Anyways, so if I change the value of I, that means if I put I is equal to 1, then I can have signal 1. If I put I is equal to 2, then I have signal 2. Similarly, and in the RHS, if I put n is equal to 1, I'll have one term. If I put n is equal to 2, then I'll have two term because j will go from 1 to 2. But since there is only one basis function, so the value of n is going to be 1 for all time. Okay, let us go back. So what I can do, I can represent signal 1 like this. Okay, if you just put I is equal to 1 and n is equal to 1 in this particular equation, okay, you will get S1t is equal to S11 times of phi 1t. Similarly, for if you put I is equal to 2, but n is restricted to 1 because you have only one basis function. So you'll end up getting like this. S2t is S21 phi 1t. Okay, so I has changed from 1 to 2. Earlier I was 1 in this equation, then next equation I became 2, but n is equal to 1 because there is only one basis function phi 1t, and j value will change according to the number of basis functions. Suppose there would have been two basis functions, phi 1t and phi 2t, then j value will go from 1 to 2. Then you'll have two term in the RHS. Right now that is not the case. We'll see when we have that kind of case. Okay, so if we figure out the value of S11 and S21, we can represent the signal in terms of basis function. So how to find out S11 and S21? S21 is basically the projection of signal on basis function 1, signal 2 on basis function 1. See, S1t and S2t are orthogonal to each other. Okay, so there will not be any projection. That means the inner product is going to be 0, or the projection is going to be 0. If you have two vectors and they both are perpendicular to each other, orthogonal to each other, then you cannot do any projection because their dot product is going to be 0. So dot product in vector is like inner product in signal. Okay, so since S1t and S2t are orthogonal to each other, okay, the dot product is going to be 0, and hence S21 is going to be 0. Okay, how about S11? S11 is the projection of signal 1 on basis function 1. It is nothing but the root of energy. Okay, so S11 is root of energy E1. E1 is the energy of the bit or energy of the signal 1. Signal 1 is a bit, so bit energy is given by EB. Okay, now since we have the equation values of S11 and S21, we can put these values and finally get the values of S11 and S21. As you can see here, the value of S1t is root of EB. We have taken the value here, root EB, and we have put it here. Similarly, I have taken the value of S210 here and put it here. So I got the values of S21 and S1t. Now what is this S21 and S11? They are basically the constant coefficient of phi 1t. But in case of signal space diagram, they will serve as coordinates. So we have the signal, we have the basis function, we have the coordinates. We can easily draw the signal space diagram. Okay, so for signal space diagram, first of all, we need how many basis functions are there. Since there is only one basis function, our signal space diagram is going to be one dimensional. Let me pull a line to represent the dimension. So there is only one dimension represented by phi 1, only one basis function. First signal, what are the coordinates for first signal? S1t, root of EB. As you can see it here, root of EB is the coordinate of the first signal, and 0 is the coordinate of second signal. So I'll place the coordinate over this line. So S1, the coordinate is root EB. For S2, the coordinate is 0. So this is the signal space diagram, one dimensional diagram it is for ASK. Okay, so first topic is covered like this. Having this knowledge, we can have the transmitter we can design the transmitter. Okay, so for that, as you see the equation again, this was the equation that we have obtained. Okay, by mistake here phi 2t is written. If you can see here, please try change it. It is phi 1t. It is not phi 2t. It is phi 1t. Only one basis function we have, so do not commit that mistake. This is phi 1t. There's a typo error. Anyway, we know the concept. So we need a multiplier. From one side constant will come, that is root of EB or 0 for signal 1 and 2, and from other side what will come? The basis function. So either we'll have if you see, we'll have root EB or 0. So we'll have either root EB or 0 as a constant coefficient. This will be multiplied with the basis function phi 1t. So let us bring phi 1t. The resultant will either give you S1t or S2t. If you put root EB and it gets multiplied with phi 1t, you will end up getting S1t here. If you multiply with 0, you will get S2t. Okay. All right. So I hope you have understood what is ASK transmitter. Let us move to ASK receiver. For ASK receiver, or for any receiver, whatever you transmit, you might not receive everything same because of the presence of channel between them. Channel have inherent noise. So there are many kind of noise available, but for analysis purpose, we're gonna take additive wide Gaussian noise. Okay, so this kind of noise have normal distribution or Gaussian distribution. Since most of the process that runs around us have Gaussian distribution, so it is easy to analyze this kind of signal. How to characterize additive wide Gaussian noise, AWGN? So AWGN have zero mean. This is the first characteristic. It is having zero mean. Also, the power spectral density of AWGN is n naught by 2, and it is flat. That means it is independent of frequency. For this kind of noise prevails for all kind of frequency. That's why the name white. Okay, and also the variance is also n naught by 2. Okay, so the received signal is on not only the transmitted signal, along with the signal we have noise, and the kind of noise is AWGN. Please keep this in mind. Okay, so the same thing has been written here. The received signal will be a corrupted one. Okay, and it is the kind of corruption, the kind of noise that we are considering here is AWGN. I told you the characteristics. Okay, let us say the received signal is given by x of t. As you can see here, the received signal is given by x of t, which is the combination of signal plus noise. Since it is AWGN white noise, we have represented it with WT. All right. The kind of receiver that we're going to use is correlation receiver. Correlation receiver basically consists of banks of correlators depending upon basis function. Suppose if you have one basis function, so one correlator is enough. What is correlator? Correlator is a kind of arrangement which consists of a multiplier followed by an integrator. So if you have one multiplier and one integrator, that means you have single correlator. Okay, and if one basis function is there, one correlator is enough. If there are two basis function, let us say phi 1t and phi 2t, then you're gonna need two correlators. That means two multipliers and two integrators. But in our case, ASK have only one basis function. So in correlation receiver, there will be one correlator. That means there will be one multiplier and a integrator. Okay. So the type of correlation is receiver is correlation receiver. Okay, I have written which involves a multiplier and integrator. So the input, the received signal is x of t. It will be applied to a multiplier, which will multiply the basis function to the received signal, and then it will be followed by an integrator. As I told you, this integrator will integrate at every t second, and the bit duration is tb. T is equal to tb, so that much area it will sweep. Based on the output of this correlator, the output of correlator x1 is a Gaussian random variable. Based upon the value of this x1, it will take certain decision, either in favor of bit 1 or in favor of bit 0. Okay, so this x1 is important to analyze. X1 is a Gaussian random variable. Okay, so that need to be analyzed. Based on the value of x1, the receiver will make decision either in favor of bit 1 or 0. Okay, we need to decide certain threshold to make decision. Okay, so how do we write x1? X1 is the product of xt with phi t, and then it will be integrated for this period. That is actually x1. Okay, Gaussian random variable. So we can write like this. Okay, x1 like this. Okay, it is a Gaussian random variable. Okay, now now that we have x1, we have the received signal. Basically received signal is our xt. Okay, after passing through the detector, this complete things makes a detector or correlator, we got x1. We need to analyze this x1 to take decision. Okay. For this, we need to bring back the constellation diagram, the one-dimensional constellation diagram. Okay. This was the constellation diagram. You can see the overall distance between two signals or the two message point S1 and S2 is given by this distance, root of EB minus 0, that is root of EB. Okay. So I'm talking about this distance. Okay. So overall distance is EB. In order to create a threshold, we'll take the middle value, the half value. Okay. So overall value is how much? Root of EB. So half of it will be the decision boundary or the threshold. Okay. So this is the decision boundary and its value is going to be half of root EB. Alright. Anything above half of root EB will be taken as 1 or else 0. So if x1 is greater than root of EB by 2, you're going to get decision in favor of bit 1, else there will be decision in favor of bit 0. So we have covered the transmitter receiver. Okay. If somebody is asking you to design the transmitter and receiver, you need to figure out the basis function, draw the constellation diagram, and then make a transmitter and receiver. Okay. Now what? Now, since we have received the signal and there might be error and there, okay, because you might have transmitted 0 and it might have been received as 1. So we need to figure out what can be the probability of error. Okay. So we're going to analyze x1 because x1 was the final output of correlator. xt was the received signal and x1 was the output of correlator. So we need to figure out x1, a Gaussian random variable. For that, we need to find out its statistical characteristics. Alright. Probability of error of ASK. So this was the, if you see here, this was the received signal x of t. And finally, this is x1. Based on the value of x1, estimation will be taken. We already have some things. We have considered signal S1t as bit 1 and S2t as bit 0. S11 we have found out root of EB and S21 is equal to 0. These things we have discussed in the previous discussion in this video. Now, how can there be error? Suppose you wanted to transmit 1, but you have transmitted 0 and received 1. Okay, so you have received you have 0 bit was transmitted and 1 bit is received. So there is error. To find the probability of error in ASK, for this x1 you need to find out some statistical characteristics like mean, variance, PDF. So you need to figure out these things. Okay, all these things if you find out, you need to find out all these things. Okay, if you will find out mean and variance, easily you can find out PDF. And once you have the PDF, just find out the area of this PDF. I'll repeat again. If you will be able to find out mean of x1 and variance of x1, you can very easily find out the PDF of x1 just by using a Gaussian random variable relationship. And once you have that, just find out the area of this PDF to find out the probability of error. So this is going to be a little lengthy, but not difficult, definitely. Okay. So from the block diagram, what is x1? x1 is the multiplication of xt and phi 1t and then the integration. So xt and phi 1t. What is xt? xt is the received signal, which is the combination of signal plus noise. So I'm going to put the value of signal and noise in place of xt. Now what I can do, I can separate this integral. Integral integration is a linear process, so we can separate it like this. Now it looks like analyzer equation, that projection of SIT over phi 1t and projection of this noise over phi 1t. Okay. Now, SIT can be either S1T or S2T. So I can be either 1 or 2. But what the case we have taken is we have transmitted bit 0 and received 1. So in place of SIT, I'm going to put S2T because S2T represents 0. Okay, so for transmission, let us take that we have transmitted S2T. So wherever SIT is there, here it will become S2T. Now it looks like a projection that projecting signal number 2 on basis function 5, so it will become S21. And projection of WT on 5-1T I have written as W1. You can just write the W, it is perfectly alright, not a problem. So we have the value of x1. One by one, we're going to find out mean, variance, and PDF. Alright. Now, what is the value of S21? As you can see here, the value of S21 is equal to 0. So if I put 0, so finally x1 is equal to W1, and W1 is nothing but noise. For your kind information, W represents white noise. So basically we need to find out the mean of the noise, the variance of the noise, and the PDF. So you already know it. I told you. What is the mean of noise? 0. What is the variance of noise? N0 by 2. If you keep those two values, you'll find out the PDF as well. So mean is of the noise and variance is already known to you. You need to find out PDF. Anyways, I'll just say you how to write it. Okay. So mean of x1 is given by the expectation operator. There must be square bracket bracket braces instead of curly braces. So there must be square bracket. So mean of x1 is represented by mu. Mean of w1 is equal to 0 because mean of the noise is 0. So it is 0. What about the variance? Variance of WT I already have told you, that is N0 by 2. Now since you have mean and variance, you can find out PDF. PDF of Gaussian random variable x1 is given by this relationship. This is a generic relationship that you need to remember. Now you can see here, in place of mu, what is the value of mu? 0. And in place of sigma square, you can see here sigma square. What is the value of sigma square? N0 by 2. I'll keep both the values and we'll find out the PDF of x1. This is the way we give PDF of x1. Okay. So this is conditional PDF, not the not the normal conventional PDF. This is the conditional PDF. Conditional PDF in the sense we have transmitted 0, but decision we have made in favor of bit 1. Okay, so there is an error. So condition is we have transmitted 0 and a decision is in terms of bit 1. Okay, we need to put these values mu and sigma square and get the values of. So this is the way we get the value of PDF. Okay, now what is the probability of error? It is the area of, if you can find out the area, that means if you integrate this thing, okay, if you integrate this thing, you will end up getting the power spectral density. Okay, so same thing I have written. Wrong decision will be made when S2T was transmitted and we take decision in favor of S1T. That's what S2T means 0. It is written here, you can see here S2T is 0. So we have transmitted 0, but we have made decision in favor of bit 1. So okay, so S2T was transmitted and we take decision in favor of S1T. That means x1 greater than EB by 2. Okay, so this is the representation, probability of error representation. You can see P0, probability of error when 0 was transmitted is and received was 1. Conditional PDF it is 0 you have transmitted and received 1. It is given by this. Okay, that is x1 is greater than root of EB. It can only happen when the value of x1 turn out to be greater than root of EB by 2. Okay, so to find out the probability of error, as I told you, you take the area of the PDF. So whatever PDF we have found out, you just find out the area. And since in our constellation diagram we have seen that anything greater than root of EB by 2 will be taken as bit 1. Okay, so that's why the lower limit is this and the upper limit is infinity. We can, okay, after putting the value from the previous equation we get this here. We can compare this equation with a Q function. Q function is a function that represents the tail of any Gaussian random variable. Okay, Gaussian random variable distribution is like a normal distribution which looks like a bell shaped curve. Okay, so it looks like a bell inverted, okay, the normal bell. So the tail of those bell represents by a Q function, represented by a Q function. So what you can do is you can compare equation number 4.6 and 4.7. There might be certain similarity. If you can notice, there is change in the operator, there is change in the limit, but if you can compare them, finally you will end up representing this probability of error in terms of Q function. Okay, so you are comparing it, and from the direct comparison of this, the power in the exponential function, directly comparison, this will come. So you can now represent, this operator dx1 in terms of dz. Okay, you got the limits as well. So once you put limit root of EB by 2 and second time you put limit infinity, so you'll end up getting limits as well. So this is simple mathematics. Okay. Finally, you will get this probability of error. Limits has been changed like this. Okay. All right. So now the operator is, if you can see here, instead of dx1, the operator is dz. Okay, and limits has been changed carefully. Okay. Again, if you compare with the Q function, you can see here the constant is same 1 upon root 2 pi. Inside also you have same. The limits you can compare. Since this was the function of Q, the limit was, this was the function of U, the limit is started from U. Now this is the function of this, so you can write, instead of QU you can write Q root of EB by 2/0. Yeah, so now PE0 is equal to this. Okay, by comparing equation number 11 and 7, you will end up getting this. So this is the probability of error when you have transmitted 0 and received 1. Other way around, what is the probability of error when you transmit 1 and receive 0? Same, because both are equally likely. So what is the average error? Average error, you just add them and divide by 2. So you'll end up getting the same thing. So this is the average probability of error for ASK. Okay. Now the last topic that we have is the power spectral density of ASK. So this is the power spectral density of ASK. Here, you remember, this is a very simple relationship that you need to understand. For a modulated waveform SF, the power spectral density is given by this 1 by 4 SM. To represent power spectral density, we convert S of t into SF. Okay, and it is here. Power spectral density of the component at Fc and minus Fc and divided by 4. Okay, so what is power spectral density of baseband signal? So this thing here is the power spectral density of baseband signal, but at different frequencies. Okay. In ASK, the type of line code that we have used is NRZ unipolar. Hope you have remember. We started our discussion. We have done this. For unipolar, the power spectral density of unipolar is given by this: a sinc function plus a impulse function. Okay, this I am directly fetching from module number 1. where we have studied power spectrum density of different line code. So the kind of line code we have NRZ unipolar. Okay, you can see in module number 1, this was the power spectral density. Okay, but this is at frequency f. Okay, we need to shift our frequency to fc, plus fc and minus fc. So it will be like this. Also the amplitude here. Okay, amplitude, we know that amplitude A is equal to root of EB by TB. So A square will be root of twice of root. See, A is equal to twice under root twice of EB by TB. So A square is twice of EB by TB straight away. Okay, wherever A is there, replace by this. Now this is SMF. What do you want? SM, F minus FC and F plus. So we can combine and write. Okay, like this. All right. So you can what you can do, in place of amplitude, you can just replace with the relation with energy and time period, this. And this is SMF. You need SM, F minus FC, F plus FC. So you can write collective equation like this. Okay, 2 and 2 will get cancelled, TB and TB will get cancelled. You will end up getting this equation. Okay, all right. So using this equation here and this equation, see, I'll put the value here plus here. This is SMF, F minus FC and F plus FC. So wherever F is there, F minus FC, F plus FC. So this is what we'll get final equation. Okay, so this is the power spectral density. We can make the spectrum as well. Okay, so you can see it is sinc square plus an impulse at frequencies plus FC and minus FC. So we are going to draw only the right side of the spectrum. The left side of the spectrum will be the mirror copy. You can draw it as well. So this is the frequency domain description. You can see here the domain is frequency. You have sinc square. You know what is a basic sinc? You know, a basic sinc function is given like this, right? You have both positive and negative harmonics going till infinity. But if you have sinc square, you don't have negative, you know, peaks. You only have positive peaks like this. Hope you have understood the idea. Okay, let's go back to our discussion. So first of all, at frequency FC you have an impulse and the amplitude of impulse is given to you. You can see here 2 TB multiplied with 4 gives you 8. So 8 TB and the amplitude is EB. So you have an impulse at plus FC and minus FC. So I'm drawing at plus FC, minus FC is the other side. I'm not drawing it. And then you have sinc. This is sinc square, so you can see all the harmonics are positive. All right, so this is the power spectral plot of ASK, plot for ASK. So all 5 topics we have covered. The next topic of discussion will be FSK. Also the frequencies are, or the zero cutoff frequencies, you can find out from here. A sinc function is basically sine pi x by pi x. Sinc x is equal to sine pi x by. From there you can find out. So what is the basic bandwidth here? This is the bandwidth. Twice 2 by TB or 1 by TB is equal to RB. Okay.